Hello everyone, today we are going to be reacting to and reviewing Melanie Martinez's new album, Portals, and this is going to be her third album, and I'm excited for it because although I was a fan of her first album, and I still listen to a few of the songs even today, I didn't like the overall aesthetic and tone that character had. So I'm interested to see what this new character will bring and what Melanie can do with it, because I think I have reviewed Death on my channel and I enjoyed it. So if that's a glimpse into anything this album is about, then I think that's a good sign because I liked the general direction it was going. But as far as that goes, you can check that out on my channel if you'd like to see the Death single reaction. But let me get into my track predictions. Okay, so I picked 3 today: Fairy Soiree, Evil, and Spiderweb. And with that being said, let's get into the album. So it's going to be 13 songs and 51 minutes. But I will skip Death because it's something I've reviewed before, and yeah. So starting with track number 2, Void. It sounds like that creature character. I like the rock vibes of it. The electronic sounds are nice too. I hated it too. Just kidding. Wow, that metaphor. Yeah, all of this imagery is crazy. It's the sound of thunder. Okay, that was Void, and I really enjoyed the vocals first of all, the drums, the bass line. It was all just very cohesive. I loved the songwriting as well, the imagery in her describing the trouble she's in, like kneeling on a metal grater and being bloody and tangled. It was all very gruesome, and it fits that rock vibe. Of course not all rock music is like that, but fits that darker type of rock style. But I also liked the metaphors in it as well. But let us move on. Track number 3, Tunnel Vision. portal. I like how she's bringing all of those concepts from before back into this. Female rage. So is this that, like, creature, I guess? It's going back to that. Alvin and the Chipmunks sample. Okay, that was Tunnel Vision. That was also an enjoyable track. I liked the beat of that and the vocals, and I liked how it was something that had crybaby vibes in a sense, and that it had that sort of like aggressive nature from her where you know, like, she takes control. And yeah, but let's go on. Track number 4, Fairy Soiree. And that's one that I wrote down, so hopefully it's good. I really like the second part. Because I don't like that high point where she sings that in the first part. Is she trying to say she's like gender fluid or something? Or is she speaking from like the creature's perspective? Okay, that was Fairy Soiree. And as I said before, I didn't really enjoy the first half of it with the higher pitched vocals. Um, but I enjoyed the auto tuned and dark lyrics of the second part. But let's move on. Track number 5, Light Shower. That's so funny. Eating you? God, her voice is so nice in this song. Her voice literally is sunlight and vitamin D right now. Those last three words. Those last couple of sounds, it sounded like something was being ripped open, or or like a coin was like you put it into one of those like machines and then like crack it around. I don't know what exactly I'm thinking of, but yeah, it's just strange. But that was Light Shower, and that was amazing. I really enjoyed her voice throughout, and it had a really peaceful guitar and instrumentation, and the lyrics of it were a bit like strange at first when she's describing like devouring, or like the person she's in love with like eating her, but I was like, I guess, warming up to it after. And yeah, yeah, it was just kind of strange, like her saying that like that person their teeth like fit into her and that she'd want to devour. But I think it's really just a metaphor for like the character that she's playing in this album, and how she's like this dark, like maybe like unlovable, like unattractive creature, but she's found like this person who is loving her despite that. And that's maybe how that creature shows love in their own way. And that's how this creature finds happess, by eating. And maybe it's not as like brutal as like the human definition of like eating another human, you know? Like it's not cannibalism in this creature's thing. But maybe it's just like a lot more simple than that. But yeah, definitely is a standout track for me so far. Let's get to track number 6, Spiderweb. Going back to death. That chewing sound. Those deep vocals. I like the contrast of that. The deep vocals and those high pitched electronic sounds. Nature sounds at the end, but that was Spiderweb. And Another enjoyable track. I don't think there's been a skip so far, but the lyrics got me thinking because it had this subliminal message that, or maybe just a very obvious message that she's likening these creatures to invasive people, like maybe like paparazzi or clout chasers and influencers who make their livings and notoriety based off of the stuff that they capture. Like, she said that she didn't want to be perceived and she has to hide, and that these creatures they feed off of the highs and lows, and they're curious to see people like her struggle, like celebrities and musicians, any popular artist, essentially. But yeah, I guess it does seem kind of obvious now if you're just like really paying attention to what she's saying. But yeah, let's move on. Track number 7, Leeches. Conscience is throbbing. I feel like a lot of her lyrics on this album, they could be like a metal song. Okay, that is Leeches, and it is a lot more on the nose with, like, especially the title being Leeches, and also the lyrics being very, like, not as, like, spread out in its message. Like, it has it, like, very concrete, and, like, it's like a paragraph straight about, like, how these people are. And, like, they're likened to leeches. They take her marrow and bones, and they try to keep people enthralled. And she asks, how much blood can you draw? And yeah, it just really ties back to the idea I was talking about in the previous song, and how, like, these people who feed off of artists' dealings and energy and just everything about them. Alright, let's move on to track number 8, Battle of the Larynx. Battle of the Larynx. So she's basically saying, don't test me or I'll chew you out. I'm really liking this rock sound, this like pop rock sort of genre blending she's doing. It's like some breathing noises. It reminded like that ending reminded me of Doctor Strange, like if he was in a universe or like if he was like hit back, you know, and he like phases through like different parts of himself and like he's just like flying backwards through like the different worlds and reminded me of just like maybe he was just like underwater and then he just because you have that like muffled hearing when you're in the water, but then he just like appears in like a party scene, like like a soiree. He just shows up in the middle of it. And that's kind of what that outro reminded me of. But yeah, this track it feels like another clapback at not really like the industry at this time, or maybe it is like her peers or people she works with, or just like a lover maybe. But she's really just saying that like she's like not afraid, but if they will test her, she will go off. Okay. And again, I really like that like pop rock sort of style she's doing on this. All right, track number 9, The Contortionist. I like the overlaid vocals and that high note. This is fun. I love those vocals coming in over the top. I don't know about that noise though. So it sounds like she's like choking or something. These outros are also cryptic. But this one specifically, it was like somebody was like nibbling on something and like swallowing whatever that was. But that was The Contortionist, and I liked some parts of it, but some parts I didn't like. Like, you know, the weird, like, choking sound and whatever was happening there. And I liked the vocal layering and the vocals that would just come over the top in the final verses. And yeah, I think it was fun also, and I enjoyed the trap elements of it in the middle verse. But yeah, that's all I'll say about it. Let's move on to track number 10, Moon Cycle. The wolf howling. I like that sound of like a coin dropping. Like a ring. Oh, so she's likening this moon cycle to like her period cycle. I don't think I've ever heard anyone use wolf sounds. I have to mentally prepare for all of these outros. Well, honestly, pretty tame for one of those outros, but that was Moon Cycle, and I enjoyed the wolf sounds, and I liked the metaphor as well. That was interesting. Yeah, I overall think it was an interesting concept to explore. But let's move on to track number 11, Nymphology. This sounds like Creep from Radiohead. It sounds very crybaby. Oh. Another outro. Sounds like it could be a cheer. Okay, that was Nymphology. And that was definitely one of the most interesting tracks of the album. Like, apart from its leaning into Crybaby. And another thing that Nymphology reminded me of is in the outro, it sounded like it could be for voguing, like the sort of distortion of the voice. It sounds like it could go well with that, and it was overall just one of the most like experimental tracks we've heard from Melanie. But let's move on to track number 12, Evil. Liking the bass already. Very evil. Oh, okay. I understand what she's saying now. Because it was kind of hard to understand what she was saying with all the instrumentation. Okay, that was evil, and it was kind of hard to understand what the lyrics were saying until the final chorus when it was more stripped down and we could hear her message better. But it's speaking to how somebody is mistreating her through the good that she does for them, but she's saying to them, you can like label me however you want, but you're mistreating me through everything I'm doing for you. So you can call me evil, you can call me conceited. It's like it's what she needs, and because no one really should go through with mistreatment and be okay with it. But we are now on to the final track, track 13, Womb. This also sounds kind of stripped down, just simple guitar. I noticed this at the end of the track, but it started with death and then ended with womb. It's kind of an interesting way of looking at things because she's back from the dead, but she's also thinking about where she came from as well. But yeah, that is Womb, and that is the album Portals. I didn't really understand Womb that much, to be honest, either, like lyrically and otherwise, but yeah, now I'll move on to my final thoughts and what I would rate this album. Okay, and as for my final thoughts and tracks that I found enjoyable, let's go through those. So, I really enjoyed Death. I think that was a good, that's a weird thing to say, but I really enjoyed that track because it was a very, like, powerful way of starting off an album and going away from the past character and issuing in this new revival of Melanie. And yeah, I just think it's multifaceted. It's not one dimensional at all. It's overall just very fun. Has a few layers to it, which I enjoy. Also, I enjoyed Light Shower a lot because that was also just very satisfying in its tone. I like that tone she sings in, and it was just overall very pleasant. I also enjoyed Tunnel Vision and Nymphology and Evil. But overall, I thought this album was a decent record from her. I enjoyed it more than K12 and that sort of shtick she was sticking to. And it offered a new path for her and a new soundscape through like that pop rock sort of lens and like dark pop. But I also thought at the same time it was kind of lacking in standout tracks. There were definitely like a lot of decent tracks, but I only found like a couple that I would consider listening to again. And for that reason, I'll say that I'll rate this like an 8 to an 8.5. So maybe like an 8.3, I'll say. Because I found that a few of the tracks, they were a bit on the nose and or very on the nose with Leech's Battle of the Larynx, The Contortionist. You could kind of just tell what the song was going to be about from the title, and the metaphors were very straightforward. But for Spiderweb, it was a bit more sparse with it and made you think about it a little bit more. But in those ones, she just like gives it to you all there, which made them pretty like one dimensional in a sense and forgettable in the grand scheme of things. Like, nobody's gonna come back and listen to those tracks unless you're just like very into them and you vibe with the lyrics, but that's how I feel about it. And let me, and with that, we're at the end of our time today and at the end of this reaction and review. So let me know what the standout tracks were for you. What would you rate this album? And yeah, thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time, maybe I won't. Goodbye.